Hey, what's up, people? Pizowell here, and today I want to talk to you guys about 1990's Pledge Night. Now, this is partially going to be a review of the movie, as well as a review of this new Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray release for the film. And Pledge Night brings back a lot of fond memories. Memories of the video store. And if you're familiar with my channel, you've probably heard me talk about this Ma and Pa video store that I used to spend a lot of time in back in the day. Now, I can't really stress enough how, if you were a horror movie fan, this video store was the place to be. The guy who owned it was a huge horror fan, and his horror section was immense. He had everything from the big studio slasher series all the way down to stuff that looked like it had been shot on a video camera in a guy's backyard. Now, me and a couple of buddies, we would go to this video store and we would rent anything that even remotely looked like a slasher movie. We ended up seeing a lot of crap. However, occasionally we would uncover a diamond in the rough. And Pledge Night was one of those diamonds. It quickly became a regular rental for us. We loved this movie. We would watch it. We would absolutely laugh ourselves silly at the first half of Pledge Night. However, when I would recommend it to people, I would tell them about halfway through, when you see the guy's hand come up out of the toilet, just cut it off. Save yourself the time. Because the first half of Pledge Night is a really fun, entertaining sex comedy with some college fraternity hazing hijinks thrown in. Think Animal House, but on a pretty strict budget. The other half of Pledge Night is a really watered down, lame, boring, just a really bad slasher movie with a slasher villain who, I was going to call him the poor man's Freddy Krueger, but that would be an insult to the poor man's Freddy Krueger, and I don't even know who the poor man's Freddy Krueger would be. Pledge Night is about a group of young men who are pledging to a fraternity. It's Hell Week, and they're having to submit some at times pretty hilarious hazing, at other times some pretty brutal, yet still hilarious hazing. Now, unbeknownst to any of them, their fraternity house back in the 60s was home to another fraternity that was actually disbanded because of a student dying during a hazing ritual. That student's name was Sid, and he's actually played by Anthrax's Joey Belladonna in the movie. And there's a lot of Anthrax on this movie's soundtrack. However, it's not any Anthrax songs that I recognized. Not that I'm the biggest Anthrax fan, but I don't think they gave them the hits for this soundtrack. I think Anthrax gave Pledge Night not even their B-sides, their C, D, E, F, G sides for the movie. Fast forward to Pledge Night, and Sid is back in the form of a half-melted, vengeful specter who begins picking off the frat brothers and the pledges one by one. And as bad as Pledge Night gets in the second half of the film, and it gets really bad, I'll get into that momentarily. The first half of Pledge Night is, again, a really fun, entertaining sex comedy with some college fraternity hazing hijinks thrown in there. We have a cherry race in this film, which a cherry race consists of guys getting in their jock straps. A cherry is placed on a large block of ice. You are to sit on the block of ice, pick up the cherry, carry the cherry to another block of ice where you drop the cherry onto that block of ice. You do all of this with the cherry with just your butt cheeks. Now, at the end of the cherry race, the losing team's captain has to eat the cherries that have been between the buttocks of all the pledge brothers. There's another sequence in this film in which a pledge is forced to eat what he thinks is a turd. It's not a turd. It's a banana that's got like a sardine paste on it, and it's been wrapped in something. I'm not sure, but it's placed in a toilet. He's blindfolded, and one of the fraternity brothers forces his head into the toilet, and forces his head into the toilet with such force and intensity. For some reason, this sequence has always cracked me up. the Pledge brothers got this dude's practically his entire head is in this toilet for an extended period of time, to the point where I'm like, you've killed him, you've drowned him, he's dead. But I don't know, for some reason I've always cracked up at that sequence. Another sequence in this film which has always cracked me up involves the Pledges drinking a chocolate shake full of all sorts of nasty stuff. They're sitting in this room, they're brainstorming ideas on how they can get rid of these shakes, how they can dispose of these shakes without the frat brothers knowing, other than drinking them. And one of the Pledges offers up the brilliant idea of pouring the shakes into their butts in order to dispose of them. Now, when Pledge Night shifts gears and becomes a supernatural slasher movie, it's really bad. It's really, really bad. First off, the pacing just goes right out the window. This 40-minute period, give or take, of the film feels like about 2 hours, because clearly they were having to pad a lot of this out. There's a sequence, you can't even call it a chase sequence. It's more of a game of hide and go seek, a really bad game of hide and go seek, with the remaining Pledges and Acid Sid. And this is a low budget movie. I'm not holding that against it, but it all takes place in one hallway, in kind of a short hallway, where you have two of the survivors run this way. Sid enters, walks that way. Another survivor walks a different way, looking for yet another survivor. Then that survivor appears and walks in another direction. Sid appears, walks. It's basically just that. The camera just focused on this hallway and the survivors walking back and forth, Sid walking back and forth, and this goes on forever. And it is incredibly tedious and boring. And then you have Acid Sid himself. The makeup just looks bad. The voice of the character has been put through so many filters that it sounds horrible, and it even sounds vaguely British. So he's a 60s hippie with a British accent that's been put through an echo chamber. It sounds awful, and he's throwing out all these bad one-liners after every kill, very Freddy Krueger-ish, and the one-liners aren't good either. And then you have the guy who played Acid Sid, and you can plainly see that his heart's not in it. He just doesn't care. He looks kind of halfway asleep, and honestly, I don't blame him. There are some pretty decent practical makeup effects in this film. One in particular features Acid Sid being birthed through one of the frat brothers. It's borrowed very liberally from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, but it actually looks pretty good. It's also really disappointing in that the first half of Pledge Night is actually kind of well written, and it gives all of the Pledges their own kind of unique character. And you like these characters, and you want them to, you like most of them, and you want them to succeed. And there's even this strange kind of, I don't know, bonding between the Pledges. The movie actually feels like it has heart during the first 40 or so minutes. All that is jettisoned when Pledge Night becomes a slasher movie. All of the smart writing, all of the good acting, the heart, everything is just gone when Pledge Night turns into a horror movie. Pledge Night is a fairly well-made film. At least the first half of it is fairly well written. The acting is not bad at all. The second half of this film just absolutely tanks it. And it's unfortunate again, because that is the horror part of the movie. That's the slasher part of this movie. So as a horror movie, I really can't recommend Pledge Night, because as a horror movie, it sucks. So unless you are just an absolutely hardcore slasher movie fan who has to see every single slasher movie ever made, and I do believe that Pledge Night did not make the jump from VHS, at least in the US, so this is probably the first official post VHS release for Pledge Night. But still, as a horror movie, this sucks. If you go into this movie wanting a pretty entertaining, comical sex comedy with some college fraternity hazing hijinks thrown in, think of a very low budget Animal House, you'll probably have fun with at least the first 40 minutes of Pledge Night. Beyond that, if you are a fan of Pledge Night, you definitely want to look into picking up this Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome. First, let's check out the presentation here. On the sleeve, we have the old school artwork for the film. This was on the VHS release of Pledge Night. The sleeve is reversible, and we have some other artwork on the reverse of the sleeve. This is a DVD and Blu-ray release, and this is an all-region release, meaning that this Blu-ray will play on any Blu-ray player anywhere in the world, region A, B, or C. As far as the picture quality and sound quality, this release is newly scanned and restored in 2K from its 35mm original camera negative. It looks fantastic. Vinegar Syndrome always does an excellent job with these releases, and Pledge Night is no exception. The picture quality on this release was great. I would give it a solid 4 out of 5. Same with the sound quality. I would give it a solid 4 out of 5 as well. The movie looked great, and the movie sounded great. As far as extras are concerned, first up, we have Hell Weeks. It's an interview with director and editor Paul Ziller. It's 15 minutes and 21 seconds in length. Mr. Ziller discusses shooting the film in 12 days for a budget of $200,000 at a real frat house in New Jersey. He discusses attending NYU's film school with such future filmmakers as Spike Lee, Jim Jarmusch, and Barry Sonnenfeld. He discusses getting the gig to direct Pledge Night, the casting process, including casting Joey Belladonna of Anthrax, the special effects, prosthetics, and more. He discusses having to submit the film to the MPAA 5 times before they were finally given an R rating, and actually receiving a nasty letter from then MPAA President Jack Valenti voicing his disdain for Pledge Night. Guess he didn't like the second half either. He also discusses the editing process and much more. Very nice interview with Mr. Ziller. Next up, we have Graduating to Horror, an interview with producer and writer Joyce Snyder. It's 10 minutes and 44 seconds in length. Miss Snyder discusses her background producing and writing adult movies. She discusses doing a lot of research into fraternity hazing, and that all of the hazing featured in the film is based on real hazing she researched. She discusses how much Anthrax's Joey Belladonna complained while filming his small role in the film, and more. Very nice interview with Ms. Snyder. Next up, we have The Bad Man, an interview with actor Arthur Lundquist. It's 27 minutes and 6 seconds in length. Mr. Lundquist discusses the auditioning process for the film. He discusses working with Joyce Snyder and Paul Ziller. He discusses the special effects and the locations in the film. He discusses keeping a journal during the filming of Pledge Night, and he reads from the journal the entry that he wrote on the day of his character's death, and much more. Very nice interview with Mr. Lundquist. Next up, we have Hazing from Hell, an interview with actor Robert Lentini. It's 12 minutes and 22 seconds in length. Mr. Lentini discusses getting cast in Pledge Night. He discusses participating in the hazing rituals, such as the cherry race, and he admits that he did, in fact, carry a cherry between his buttocks for the film. He also discusses having honey poured on his face, and then his face being covered in cockroaches, and what that was like, and much more. Very nice interview with Mr. Lentini. We have a locations featurette, which is 2 minutes and 59 seconds in length, in which we see the Pledge Night shooting locations at Rutgers University today, and it's narrated by writer and producer Joyce Snyder, and we get the original theatrical trailer for the film. This is a very nice Blu-ray release for Pledge Night from the fine folks over at Vinegar Syndrome. You've got some really nice extras on here, and the picture quality and sound quality are both fantastic. I'll post a link to Vinegar Syndrome's website down in the description. Go over and check them out. If you've seen Pledge Night, let me know your thoughts on it down in the comment section below. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up and consider sharing it on social media. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace. Join the A Buck a Month Club and help support my channel on Patreon. Thank you to my current patrons, Kevin Smythe, B-Movie Mike, Robert Sobel, Turi Delamore, Stephen Flanagan, Lori Holt, Craig Farrand, Farron Sutton, Jeremiah Lambert, Grindhouse Grotto, Derek Jana, Demon Waffles, Simon Clark, Stone Gassman, Zachary Barton, Lauren Dixon, James Welch, Eli Geisler, Jeff Overing, Pete Toll, Kyle McGuire, Jay the Stingray, Andrew McDonald, Dave Barnes, Jonathan Lundy, Chris Gonzalez, Trenton Bowser, Jason Breitenbach, Brandon Bisdick, Steak Sauce, OG Myers, Mark Striano, Jeff Gardner, Travis Davis, The Obsoletionist, Chris Earls, and Kevin Fitzpatrick. Say hello to the internet, Jeremy.
Hello to the internet.